I'll try and be loud and not shout.
Yeah, probably.
Okay. The only thing that you do need to notice for the examiners is that some people are simply participating as bodies. Okay, so you're performers. Gareth, yes?
Yes.
Ankish is a performer.
You should be able to see a number on the ones that are performers.
Okay, performers have numbers. Okay.
Somewhere otherwise it's located on the body.
And Anthony is with you.
Anthony does.
All rise. You may be seated.
This trial is now in session.
Lord Governor, members of the court, this issue today is the case of Venice against Lieutenant Iago.
Bring in the defendant.
The court is called today to hear the case of one Iago against the sovereign state of Venice. It is submitted to the state by the state as on previous occasions, too many to note, that Iago of Venice has committed calumny of the worst kind in the slander of fair Desdemona. His words and actions have undermined the authority of the Lord Governor Othello, leader of the armed services.
As has been said, we are called today to hear the trial of Iago, a lieutenant of the leader of the armed services and once trusted confidant. It is submitted that he grossly committed the crime of slander. How does the defendant plead?
Not guilty.
We call the first witness, Cassio Venice, to the stand.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name for the benefit of the court.
My name is Michael Cassio. I'm the former lieutenant of Lord Governor Othello.
Cassio, you've been called here today to give evidence of prosecution for the trial of Iago. How long have you known the defendant?
I've known him since being brought in from Venice.
And as lieutenant, or former lieutenant, how would you describe Iago's military conduct?
I've never known him to be anything other than dutiful, compliant, and brave.
Has he ever given you reason to question his allegiance to my authority?
He's always been loyal and honest.
And what is your opinion of the charges brought against the defendant today?
The behavior he's charged with seems quite out of character, as I don't recall him ever saying anything derogatory about the fair Desdemona, or anybody else for that matter. In fact, I once heard him say he'd rather lose his tongue than speak ill of me. I don't believe I have a reason to do him offence now.
And do you know of his opinion of Desdemona?
As far as I know, he always treats her with the respect she deserves as your wife, as we all do.
Or did Iago never mention her to you privately? Many people comment on her virtue and her beauty, did they not? Did he not?
Well, now that I recall, even I disgrace myself, he did mention her in conversation, but at the time I thought nothing of it.
At what time did Iago, in retrospect, speak bad with her?
Well, not exactly, but...
Not exactly. Remember, Cassio, I have exact words.
I made the comment that Desdemona was a most exquisite lady, to which he implied a provocative streak to her modest and virtuous character. He may have been somewhat inappropriate, but at the time I did not recognize it as such, as he was saying it.
Well, then you admit that his words were meant in a derogatory way, and therefore constitute the slander that he's accused of?
I'm sure he wouldn't have intentionally sought to damage her reputation. She is, after all, such a fine and thoughtless woman.
I hear that you're most complimentary about my wife. We've heard enough from you, Cassio, for the time being. Call in Desdemona.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please benefit your name. Please state your name for the benefit of the court.
I'm Desdemona, wife of Lord Governor Othello.
Fair Desdemona. Can you tell the court how you come to know the defendant?
I only came to know Jakob through his connection with you, my lord, and also as the husband to my lord from the estate.
Personal experience of the defendant?
In my company, he has always behaved with due respect. I find it difficult to believe that you would not have immediately noticed anything questionable about his behaviour, if indeed there is anything to question. You are far more perceptive than I am.
Well, could anything about your own behaviour, perhaps, have provoked Iago into thinking anything untoward about you?
Like Leontes' wife, I conduct myself only as my role dictates, in a manner that befits the wife of an extinguished general such as yourself. I know my behaviour reflects upon you, and I would never do anything which might risk damage to your reputation. My waiting woman Amelia is always with me, and she can assure you of this.
Well, your reputation has, my lady, and to the point, always been virtuous. We must remember that it is Iago that is on trial today. Bring in his wife Amelia.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name for the benefit of the court.
My name is Amelia. I'm the wife of Lieutenant Iago.
Amelia, do you understand the seriousness of the charges brought today?
I do, my lord.
And you're aware of the impact of these allegations against your husband?
These allegations affect many people, myself included.
How might you describe Desdemona?
She's a woman whose virtue many people aspire to. In all my time with her, I've never known her to be anything other than a dutiful and graceful and loving wife and a gracious mistress.
So anything your husband may say about her would be complete lies and slanders.
Certainly. Although I must impress that I've never myself witnessed Iago speak ill of her.
Well, he may indeed have avoided passing comment on Desdemona in front of you. But do you believe it could have been his character to make such remark?
I've known him to show general contempt in some instances, but that's merely because he's not a man of the most jovial character. It's in his nature.
How has this contempt shown itself?
I do recall an idle conversation in which he made pass comment on the nature of women. Well, it was indeed a general remark, which bore no explicit reference to my lady's virtue. In fact, she was party to this very conversation and made recognitions of better than I can.
Desdemona?
My lord, Iago did indeed warn us of his critical nature, but I have no reason to believe that his words were spoken in anything other than jest. He did indeed make general remarks upon some women's capacity to be manipulative in their relationship with women, although this applies to neither Amelia nor I. We are honest and truthful and loyal wives. However, he has once unfoundedly accused me of adulterous behaviour.
So he could potentially have made many more such unfounded accusations against another.
I cannot deny that I spend most time in the presence of my lady. I cannot verify the content of his conversations.
But even so, is there anything that should be brought before this court today?
Well, he did make passing mention of Desdemona's handkerchief, which, on finding it, I presented to him as he gasped.
You presented it to him. Surely you must have known of the importance of this token to my mistress. Explain yourself.
Sir, it was my duty as his wife to do as he bids me, and I had no reason to believe he would not return it to her. My lord Amelia meant no harm by this. She's bound to do her duty to her husband, as I am to you. It's Iago's damage to mine, and therefore your reputation, which stands in question here today, not the nature of Amelia's loyalties.
You're right, my fellow.
Well, this bodes well for me. I'm yet to hear a serious attack upon my name. Cassio, he spoke well. The fair Desdemona has spoken well. And my foolish wife has spoken well. Although slipped slightly.
Since we've established that Iago was the last one to possess the handkerchief, and my wife as virtuous as we always have known her to be, how did this token of my love come to be in Cassio's chambers? Cassio?
It was nothing of my doing. I would never dream of trespassing so far as to endanger your or indeed your lady's reputation. Any slander against Desdemona's faithfulness would seem to be supported by the presence of her token in my chamber. But I know that both the sullying of my lady's virtuous character and my supposed possession of her handkerchief are falsely fabricated.
My lord.
Please, remember the formalities of the court, Roderigo. Do you wish to speak?
Yes, indeed I do, sir. For what this man speaks is true. I can vouch for that.
Roderigo Venice, take the oath.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Please state your name for the benefit of the court.
My name is Rodrigo. I'm a subject guard.
Roderigo, you were called before us today to give evidence for the prosecution. Could you please tell the court how you first came to know the defendant?
In my capacity as a member of the armed services, my lord.
And what of your recent dealings with the defendant?
I have indeed come into personal contact, but I would rather not venture any
Well, I'd rather you would, sir.
detail.
Tell the court, I remind you, that you're under oath and before the eyes of God. What dealings have you had with this man? What would you say to witness statements here that you are a friend of the defendant?
Witness statements, my lord? Who? And when?
It's not for you to question the authority of this court. It's for you to answer the questions that are asked of you. I shall not do so again. Are you friends with this man?
Friends, my lord? Friends with this man? No one is friends with this man. He uses people merely as a means to an end. He's a dog, an inhuman dog. He has tricked me for my money, fed me lies that cannot be sated. He's a manipulator, a trickster, and a slanderer.
That you are often seen plotting this and that.
I told him, my lord, on many occasions, my lord, that I would not indeed endure his meddling any longer, and indeed that I would not be persuaded to put in peace that which I had already foolishly suffered.
And what of claims of slander against fair Desdemona? Did the defendant ever say anything to you about this lady? Did he ever sully the name of this lady in front of you?
He did, my lord, many a time, and indeed the reputation of yourself. In fact, he did once tell me that he holds you in his hate.
There are whisperings that suggest you're an accomplice to this defendant. Have you ever undermined the good name of fair Desdemona? Have you ever questioned my authority?
I would never do such a thing. I would never do such a thing. Desdemona is both fair and virtuous, and any who would try and besmirch her name are the foulest of creatures. I have never acted in a way as to dishonour the name of yourself, or indeed your lady.
Well then what of reports that you accompanied the defendant to the house of the senator recently and caused a disturbance? Did you not accuse my wife of most slanderous things? We have evidence provided here today that you accused Desdemona, and I quote, of making a gross revolt with an extravagant and wheeling stranger.
My lord, my words were not intended to offend. I was spurred on by the devilish Iago. My lord, I plead before this court that I am weak, but nothing more. The defendant is a manipulator, a fraud, a trickster of the mind, and indeed one that abuses his position of friend. My lord, I am sure you can imagine what this is like. What's more, my lord, any position of proximity I had with the defendant only serves to prove what I have already said to you. He often told me so many lies. He called your wife full of game, insinuated that she had a history of lust and foul thoughts, and even alleged that she had lain with Michael Cassio.
And what are reports that you were an accomplice in the attempted murder of Cassio Venice?
My lord, you would have done the same if you had been in contact with the defendant with persuasive methods. Cassio, sleeping with your fair lady, my lord. It was out of pure passion that I leapt to the defence of your honour.
So you believe the stories and words of this defendant, that Desdemona, my wife, fair and virtuous, was lying with a former lieutenant? I see that you're a little better than the scoundrel Iago.
I cannot believe this of her, my lord.
I've heard enough. Take him away and bring forward the defendant.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you
course.
God? Please can you state your name for the benefit of the court.
Lieutenant Iago.
Thank you.
It's been stated many times in the courts of law that in addition to justice being done, it should manifestly and undoubtedly be seen to be done. In this vein, Iago, you're given the opportunity today to respond to the evidence presented in this court.
Othello, husband and judge. Desdemona, victim and wife. Am I expected to see justice? I do not. I see Nothing but blackness, void of justice.
Suspicion always haunts the guilty mind.
Guilty. My verdict's already spoken. Am I not to speak?
Well then speak, but do so as to a point, aiding your case.
You know.
I will not hear any comments regarding the nature of this court, or that question my authority.
We are fortunate the witness stand is not of greater height.
How so?
The weak Rodrigo is not of the same mind.
Iago, please get you to the point. How do you respond to the accusations made against you today?
He jumped would be good. He's hardly of sound mind. He's tried it before. Just how you propose to rely on the testimony of this weak and unsound mind is beyond me.
Did you not hear what I said? I said speak as to aid your case. Else I shall assume you're done with speaking.
I am so speaking. Your witnesses are unreliable, and so are you. You are driven by emotion without a pound of sense.
I am without sense. I can say that a long-serving soldier such as Rodrigo has said that you have blackened the name of Desdemona many a time. What do you say to that?
I said that he's in love with your wife.
And I suppose he spoke this. What's the sleep?
He spoke every hour of the day.
But you said he's an unsound man. You make no sense.
I agree with him that he's weak, but that is all. He's weak and serves to protect himself by silencing me, so he doesn't have to answer for his own comments.
No one's silencing you. I prefer that you would speak.
If I were to slam Desdemona, well, then I do it for a better purpose as a humour Rodrigo. Cassio, your trusted lieutenant, has said no evil against my name. My wife has said no harm against me, and neither has mine.
Amelia clearly stated that you accused her of adulterous behaviour. If you slander your own wife, I am held to believe that you easily slander another man's wife.
She also clearly stated that I am not a man of calm temperament. What I said to her at one time was, does the court lack a sense of humour? Let's review the facts, Othello.
We do not need a review of the facts in this court.
Iago. Our wives are often in each other's company, away from the politics of jealous men, and unqualified for the power of testimony forced upon them here today. Cassio, respected lieutenant, has nothing but praise for me. And against all of this, you choose to amplify the words of a weak madman. It only seems that you can provide. It only seems that he can provide you the ammunition necessary to press your.
I think we're done.
No, I think I am done if I'm to be trialed here and not in Venice.
I have all the evidence before me that I need to carry out judgment.
Your evidence is pathetic, Othello. On the balance of this evidence, I see nothing but a mockery.
Please do not speak anymore. You've had
Do you not
time.
see the injustice? I demand the dignity of a fair.
As Lord Governor, your censure is at my expense.
In your own case,
This is your case,
we have an interest.
not
in
mine. I have an interest in the strict consideration of breaches of conduct by Venetian soldiers residing here on official duty, under my command as Lord Governor.
And I'm to believe you're presiding here today as Lord Governor, not as a fellow.
Believe what you want. I'm doing what I'm required to do.
Like you're required to issue the death for Cassio?
You asked to undertake his fate. Nothing's changed except that justice has found the true defendant.
Again with your justice. Was it just to have Cassio dealt with outside of the court?
Perhaps I've been mistaken in the past, but justice has led us down the right track.
And is your justice undoubtedly being seen to be done? Well, but is it, though? Is there nothing I can say to make you see your injustice? Your key witness, madman, of unsound mind. Is that it? Then I'm done.
Iago, you were summoned here today before my authority as Lord Governor of the Armed Services. I've heard the declarations made by the witnesses, Cassio, Amelia, Desdemona, Rodrigo, and you also have been given the chance to defend yourself. What is clear is that you have been playing games, slanderous games, that have evoked the most unnatural emotions in the calmest of men. Today we heard how you slandered the honest Desdemona, claimed that she did paddle palms and was full of game. But the only game here was your own. And the law has now delivered justice to Venice. You've undermined the authority of the Lord Governor and dared to question the validity of these proceedings. I hereby find you guilty of the charge stated. You'll be sentenced tomorrow before our return to Venice. Take him away. I'm done.
All rise. This court is adjourned until 9 o'clock tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Judge, get some chairs and bring them face up.
Oh yeah. Do this check.
For a second.
I take that's the complete words of this standing to the Bible.
Yes.
Start by telling us about why it was that you wanted to think about slander as the centre of this trial.
Well, I think I had a bit of an influence. I particularly enjoyed reading one of the articles that was in the reading pack, the Kaplan and Edwin one, which was really good. And I thought that it would be a really valid point to kind of bring across, and we could get a lot of the other textual aspects in with it, kind of different aspects of the law, you know, intertextual reference, things like that. So we thought it would be a good thing to go with.
Initially, like, we were a bit concerned because we weren't sure how much textual quotes we could get from it. So, but we went through it and it was quite a lot of people with it.
Interesting, you picked up some stuff, you inserted some stuff from the Winter's Tale as well. But what was the...
Well, there was an initial idea that we do three plays, or three performances in half an hour, each paralleling the three themes that we discussed throughout the course. We then thought there was enough material on slander that we could raise the issues within one performance of slander. And I thought the slander of Iago and having Othello as judge, prosecutor, interested party to the course was a good way of you could broach those themes without actually having to do three performances.
And also the fact that Othello was the judge kind of reflected the measure for measure, you know, where we had the kind of almost biased judge who had a vested interest in.
We didn't want to like neglect what we'd done in the class. So
Yeah.
we had to incorporate it.
I think
And
we
the
had
Slander thing in Winter Still, it's the same thing basically. So we want to bring that back.
Thank you.
That seems to make a kind of implicit critique of the business of due process here. You know, just no.
No,
No, it's there. It's definitely there.
Like in the end of the script, we adjourned it to tomorrow and we're going to have the sentencing before we return back to Venice, because once you return to Venice then we have to play by the actual rules, so we wanted to keep everything.
Yeah, not a state of lawlessness, but a state of where Othello is. Yeah.
Well, I think
Ultra-virus.
Would you
yeah.
want to say anything as lawyers about this notion of early modern due process as you see it in the plays? As against the kind of we've spent a lot of time talking about the strict reading of the law, or the real law, against the version of the law that we see in the plays, and the variations on the law. And so the critique of due process you were encountering all the time. Would you like to say something about that? About confronting that issue, say in The Merchant of Venice or in Measure for Measure?
There's a lot more of a battle from the defender's point of view, because, well, Winter's Tale and Measure, for example, whereas we like learn it from a set formalities point of view, it seems to be somewhat unpredictable.
And I thought that the way we did it was having no lawyers. I think that was more, you know, they didn't seem to have advocates on either side, the defence and the prosecution. Judge was judge and prosecutor, and I think that was explored. Winter's Tale, you have Leontes and Hermione just standing there defending herself against the prosecutor and judge, which is Leontes, and I think that's what we're trying to echo.
More of like an inquisitive.
Yeah.
Necessarily.
You've done what Shakespeare did in those three trial scenes that we looked at, which is he doesn't represent an actual court of law. He takes elements, as we found, from different big thing that was coming across the sort of legal theme was this one, which I could see you were wrestling with. I was just interested in how you sort of contributed to it, which is that principle of English law with the Latin maxim, nemo iudex causa sua est. No one should be a judge in their own cause.
Yeah.
What was it was that what you were trying to illustrate partly, that by making Othello both kind of, in this situation, head of chief executive, as it were, and head of the judiciary?
We were particularly interested in having Iago kind of pick up on this as the defendant, kind of say, this is, what's going on here, because he's obviously in a position where his fate is pretty much, in terms of like the cases of Thomas More, treason trials and things, his fate's pretty much decided.
It's interesting to see that Iago is the villain who you'd never, I think anyone watching the play would never want justice to be on his side, or well, they probably do, but not for him. Whereas here, you don't feel sorry for him, but there's a sort of sympathy that he's not getting a fair trial. So that turned that around, I suppose.
You also gave Iago, which Shakespeare does with his villains, like Richard III, for example. You gave him this sort of black humour.
Yeah, definitely.
And you also what made you decide that Iago should be the only one who should talk directly to the audience?
It was partly convenience for the change his costume, but also when we were initially planning, we did make the idea of having some sort of interaction with the audience. And
It's also because he also does it in the play itself, like speaks to the side, to the public, and we really like that to come back.
And from the literary point of view, I thought it would contribute to the sort of
elements of
and the fact that you have this court scene going on, but you also have an isolated defendant who has no support, no legal representation. He's kind of his own entity against everyone else.
And then everyone else is complicit in this, charade, fraud, whatever you want to call it, of the court. That's why I was talking to them.
he's like silent for so long, it only seems right that he gets a chance to say something to the audience.
Could I ask what actual slander law did you have in mind? Were you thinking in contemporary terms, or were you thinking in early modern terms? Or was slander something for the purpose of this court that had just been brought to the court, say in a way that accusations were brought in front of the body courts, that that Paul Rafffield has been having it off with the secretary in the theatre. Is that true, isn't it?
That's true.
That accusation, was that what sort of form of slander were you thinking about there? Or what period of what moment of slander? Did you have any kind of period identification or definition of slander?
I think Shakespeare's time. We did start off with a modern English definition,
We did.
but it's more in Shakespeare's time. It means more that you're undermining the authority of the leader in questioning the virtue of the lady.
We were really interested on the impact on patriarchy as well, on the sort of leader figure, on the husband, or the male in any situation like that. We were interested in the impact of the female's reputation upon that of her husband.
And this was not like an impromptu ad hoc bawdy court. I don't think it was like that. I think we saw this as much a grander thing. Because it was political.
Yes.
And because it was against a person of...
I think that's why it was a good idea to make it more to do with early modern's life. The modern tort of defamation,
Exactly.
all that you have available as a remedy is damages.
What was also fascinating, and perhaps you also might want to speak about this, is how very nearly Iago you got off.
Well, the thing is, I see it there, and you see it's balanced. He's sleuth-like in his manipulation and stuff. He sets balls rolling, but always stands back and, as in, it's hard to pin it on him. And I thought that could have come across in the trial. That you haven't actually got that much against him.
And especially
but
because
watching the whole thing, that he has done it.
we've cut it before all of any actual physical violence. So there's even less evidence against him than there was in the actual text.
And to a certain extent, it is justified. He is speaking from a justified position. He's kind of been usurped in the same way as like Goneril and Regan. You can see that they have a case because their father has had this obvious favouritism. and you know that he's obviously made a mistake on his own part, and this has caused them to react this way, albeit extremely, in the same way as Iago has. But he does have this underlying argument that's definitely there, and that's why we were keen not to sort of say, oh, you're completely wrong. We wanted him to have a bit of a fight.
It kind of reminded me of the feeling you have when Shylock's with the child, and you feel like, well, he's got a definite point, but still you don't really want him to win. I guess it's the same thing, because Iago here has he's got a point. He has one real witness against him, which is not the most
Not
aligned.
signed.
But then again, I mean, you don't really want him to win this case either, so it's a bit on the fence.
Just a couple of other little things, both to do with Iago. One is as much to satisfy my own curiosity anyway, not to offer a critique of the performance. Well, the first point I made that I noticed, one of the points I noticed when I was watching it, was that silence is incredibly powerful on stage if it's used properly. And I wondered how there were moments when you, Anthony, were listening to all this, and I could really see that you were being Iago. I could see what was going on in your mind. But how
It's a bit scary.
first of all, how conscious a decision was that to present
There's a bit of a
character through silence? And secondly, and it's a question everyone asks about Iago, why?
Go over to the first question. Yeah.
Why does he do what he does?
With regard to the first question, it was quite difficult because we knew he was going to be there for a long time with silent. But also it was definitely that, if you look at it in terms of the script, there's so much text against him before he gets to speak.
I like the idea of Iago being methodical and meticulous, and he'd listen to all the evidence that came forward. He'd think about it. He wouldn't be, rash. Rodrigo's rash. He comes in, he bursts into court. I can vouch for this man. Whereas Iago, he waits for his moment, and he gets that moment at the end, the last person to speak. He loves it, I think.
Say something about your numbers.
Yeah, these are a homage to our classes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just explain your numbers. Yeah.
As far as, part of it was to bring everything together.
Yeah.
We wanted to have aspects of everything in our performance, from the classes, from our own discussions, we wanted to have everything. But also we kind of thought it was important in terms of male and female also, and the kind of interpretation that we've given. Because, I have an 8 as Desdemona, and Rodrigo has an 8? This jacket here, Cassio has an 8 also, but they're different kinds of 8, which we didn't necessarily talk too much about at the time, so we just wanted to kind of get it across in a practical sense so that you could see it.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can see it.
No.
And I've got a question of Jennifer and Harrod, because the men only played men. You played men, you played women and men. How did you? What was your way into that? Playing men.
Well, we really enjoyed the guys in skirts, so it was only fair to have us being male. And part of it was, if we would only do Amelia and Desdemona, we would be having a very short part, and we didn't feel that quite reflected.
We wanted to contribute,
Yes.
and we also thought it would help to kind of reinforce the gender discussions we've had, because the stances hopefully changed when we were playing men compared to the kind of closed up way that we behaved when we were playing women, and we just wanted to kind of, again, in a practical way, we wanted to be able to represent.
Did you give any insights into that sort of diminished legal status of women in early modern?
It did. Reading around it did. Because that was, I think it was Iago that said they're completely unqualified to be in this situation. And when you read the different cases, that is how it is. And you see it with Hermione, she's completely overruled every corner.
Yeah.
And we kind of wanted to touch upon
Yeah, that's why, I'm the lowest, a 5. And Desdemona's obviously up there because she's married to Othello, but that's basically the only reason, So.
I was just going to add on top of that because why they played both parts. Originally we emailed Chris and Cash to play the parts, but we also want to incorporate what we could learn in the class. It's a bit like a late decision, but I'm happy we did it. It worked well.
Is there anything you'd like to say finally then about what all this has meant to you? say about, would you do this again?
Yes.
Yeah, totally.
I thought this is very cool way of doing an exam. The
Yeah.
best way I've done
It's
so
gone
far.
well. I was a
Yeah.
bit nervous that you wouldn't have come
Oh,
together.
me too.
I think,
Yeah.
having seen it in hindsight, it's come together a lot better than I thought it would.
I guess.
And things were like when Rodrigo came in, it was
Mm.
really
Yeah.
fluid. So I'm
But
happy from that point of view.
yeah, I guess.
And initial doubts.
What was, I think, well, I was a bit worried we wouldn't get all the themes in.
Mm.
I guess we didn't touch on everything we learned, but because first we were thinking maybe we should do arguments according to the plays, but it was so difficult that we did what we did now. But, and I think we got quite a lot of it in, but basically not everything.
Have you learned anything from this kind of teaching that you would not elsewhere? Is there anything that you can kind of point to and say, well, I wouldn't be able to do that without having done this module?
So, doing law or doing mooting or anything, you're behind a desk all the time. You're standing up behind a desk and you're very protected. Whereas this year, the barriers are removed. Like you just have to walk around. Spatial, I know, but spatial, being confident in your body and confident in the space that you're in, that's improved knowing. I think a confidence boost this definitely gives you at this course.
I also think
This way to teach
because
you.
you're in character, you start to think more about your character and the part in the play and maybe part like females in general. And just because you really want to be in your character, you start thinking about it more and more. And I guess I would never have that just reading a book.
Immediately as I put this sash on,
Yeah, you
That's
already done
instant
instant session.
instant status, hand went behind the back, chest pouted out, a new man.
I looked at her and I thought, coming to court would be like that. Good heavens, what does this woman expect? Thank you very much. Anybody, any last questions from anybody? Okay, do we have a 10-minute intermission?
Yeah, let's do that.
Right?
Let's get some
Thank you.
Okay, 10 minutes.
I like it.
We need to change the law.